Vice President Johnson, can you hear me? This is Patricia.
Johnson is here, Mr. President.
Well, welcome. This is the regularly scheduled business meeting. Oh, thank you. For the Montana Public Service Commission. Today is Tuesday, the 15th of March, 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. If you'll allow me to spread my Irish identity a little bit here. Will the commissioners join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Done this before, so if you'll excuse me. Right. So yes. Meeting is now, and we had the Pledge of Allegiance. Public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? I recognize everybody here, so that any public comment online? Nope, nothing there. Okay. Any changes to the agenda? No changes to that. Okay. So action items, approval of the commission minutes for the week of March 7th. Moved by Commissioner Pinocci,
I will second the motion.
seconded by Commissioner Fielder. Any discussion? All in favor of Mr. Commissioner Pinocci's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Oh, by the way, yes, so that motion passed. I am remiss also and to say that Commissioners Pinocci and Fielder are with me in the bullet room this morning. Commissioner Johnson is with us by telephone, and Commissioner Brown will be joining us later on. He has a conflict for the first part of this meeting. So work sessions, item number 1, 2021.05.073, the town of Kevin. Mr. Hamilton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This particular work session concerns the town of Kevin's complaint against North Central Montana Regional Water Authority. As you're aware, Commissioners, the town of Kevin has argued that the authority is acting as an unregulated public utility. They ask for the commission to assert its jurisdiction and start regulating the rates and services provided by the Regional Water Authority. Before you in your meeting minutes, or your meeting materials, I should say, is a draft order prepared by staff to rule on the motion to dismiss, which was filed by North Central Montana Regional Water Authority. The motion to dismiss argues, in essence, that the commission doesn't have jurisdiction and that this proceeding does not need to continue all the way through to a hearing. As detailed in that draft order, staff agrees with North Central Montana Regional Water Authority that the commission does not have jurisdiction here. Excuse me. There are a couple of reasons for that. First, It's important to note that the commission, when we last considered this particular matter, we asked the parties to submit additional briefing on the question of the Regional Water Authority Act and how that act would be applied to the commission's jurisdiction. You're all well aware that municipalities and county water districts currently are exempt from the commission's jurisdiction under the definition of a public utility. The Regional Water and Wastewater Authority Act allows the members of an authority to jointly exercise their powers, privileges, and authority. The parties come to us in their responsive briefing with different interpretations of what it means to have a jointly exercised power, privilege, or authority. Town of Kevin takes a narrow approach to interpreting that clause of the statute. They believe that a jointly exercised privilege only refers to those privileges allowed for supplies of public water and transportation and treatment of wastewater, specifically two sections of Montana Code, two titles of Montana Code that are outside of Title 69, where the commission derives its authority. On the other hand, North Central Montana Regional Water Authority takes an expansive approach and interprets the statute to mean that it includes the exemptions from commission regulation, that those are privileges that can be jointly exercised by the members of the authority acting together. Upon review of the legislative history here, it seems clear to staff that the legislature never intended for the commission to regulate these authorities. In fact, former Public Service Commissioner, Senator Greg Jurgensen, carried the last bill that modified that act. And in that bill, they set up a public process for authorities to set their own rates. It was observed throughout that legislative process that the commission has some practical problems in trying to regulate a municipal or a county water district. Namely, the problem is that those entities don't have shareholders. So when you as a commission issue an order requiring a refund of rates or a rate cut, there are no shareholders to pay for that. Instead, it has to go to the constituents of the municipality or of the county water district, which are the taxpayers. So as a practical matter, the legislature determined that it was better for those entities, the municipalities and county water districts, to regulate their own rates, to set their own terms of service. And as a result, the commission has not exercised any authority over these regional water and wastewater authorities since their inception. The draft order grants the motion to dismiss. That is staff's recommendation. But with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Commissioner Pannocci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt staff recommendations on this matter.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I second the motion.
As motion and has been seconded, discussion. Commissioner Pannocci. He defers to Commissioner O'Donnell
Thank you, Mr. President.
or Commissioner Pannocci.
So I was real anxious to tackle this issue, but a judge's job is to interpret Montana law and not make law from the bench. So based on that very important point of view, we have to support staff recommendations. If the town of Kevin is concerned about what to do next, I would ask them to get with the legislature and change the law. And I think that's the best answer in short that I have for this situation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Pannocci. Commissioner O'Donnell. Thank you. My line of inquiry was similar to Commissioner Pannocci's. So should we interpret the law that we do have authority over a regional authority and that the rights of exemption do not follow the water rights up above? Would it benefit public policy at all in any way to do that? Would anything be accomplished by doing that?
Mr. President, Commissioner O'Donnell, That's a great question, and I think there are multiple ways to interpret the public interest in this scenario. I would note that the Regional Wastewater Authority Act, such as it is, includes a public process for setting rates. It also requires municipalities, county water districts to proceed through their own public processes when the authority's process necessitates an increase in rates for its membership. So if the commission were to get involved here and have its own public process for setting rates, you would potentially have a situation of 3 different tiers of a public process, all needing to be harmonized and proceeding in unison, or as a staggered effect. I don't know that the public interest, at least from my perspective, which may not be worth a whole lot, but from my perspective, there's not a whole lot of benefit for the public interest when you already have the existing public processes in place for the commission to then add another layer on top of what's already out there. So I would submit that the way the law is written currently, there's not a lot of good reason for the commission to get involved in adding its own layer of oversight in this process.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, that it is consistent with my gloss on Commissioner Pinocchi's comments, is that since there's a public policy of rate setting by the authority and not just thoroughly arbitrary on their behalf, it isn't as if the local water authorities, the individual municipalities have yielded all authority on this, that it is a public process in which they participate. That I agree, adding another layer on top of that would be insufficient. However, the town of Kevin, if they, since don't live in that area, I'm not one of those water utilities, that their recourse to the legislature would be the way to go, but without any compelling need for or benefit to the public for this commission being involved. I agree that we should, with your interpretation, staff's interpretation of the law, that we do not have jurisdiction. It was not anticipated, nor would it be helpful, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Additional discussion? Mr. Hamilton, just some housekeeping matters on the draft order. Before this is sent out, if adopted, the date is wrong, and you also have CenturyLink being served. So we'll correct those. Outside of that, I would say that I'm going to support Commissioner Pinocchi's motion. But I believe that the statutory scheme is such that we do not have jurisdiction in the first instance in this matter, and I think the statutory language is clear on that. So I don't think the resort to legislative history is even necessary in this case. But I'll still be supporting the motion. I would also like to congratulate the parties to this matter for the excellent briefing that was done on this. It was quite well done and informative. Additional discussion? Mr. Pinocchi?
In case some of the people in Kevin are listening today, my experience with working and leading water and sewer projects, what is happening out there is, in the old days, if you had a water and sewer system to hook up to, that was far cheaper. You simply had to hook your home to a water system that was already in place and a sewer system that was already in place. What's starting to transpire today is water and sewer is becoming so expensive that it would be cheaper to drill your own well and put in your own sewer system. And that's quite a change. So anyone building a home should consider that if they have the choice. In some communities, they won't allow you to put in a septic system in your yard or even drill for water. But today, if you can get away with that, in the long run, it adds value to the property and it saves money, because water and sewer rates are really seeing some increases that make it where it's not the best deal. When people realize this, they turn to the Public Service Commission for help. And I think it's important that the public consider working with their legislation for two reasons. One, the Public Service Commission to have oversight. Two, for your ability to drill for your own water and put in your own septic system, because rates are getting to a place where that certainly is going to be cheaper. I felt that I should give an answer to where a person might say, well, just what the heck did we accomplish today? And I have to encourage the public to work a little bit closer with their lawmakers to ensure this type of future in Montana. Thank you, Mr. President.
Additional discussion. Vice Chair Johnson, anything?
Nothing to add, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner Panocci's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. All right, let's move to work session item number 2. This is docket 2021.07.102 CenturyLink's petition for elimination of Q West Performance Assurance Plan and Performance Indicator definitions. We're here to consider issuing a final order in the docket. Mr. Regalo, welcome. It's nice to have you in person.
Yeah, good morning, President, Commissioners. It's great to be here. As the President noted, we're here today to consider CenturyLink's petition to eliminate the PAP and the PID. I had no idea what these were when this docket came in. So it's been a good historical lesson on the last 20 years of telco evolution in Montana. Just to give a brief background, mid-1980s, the federal courts broke up the AT&T telco monopoly and separated long distance functions from the local intrastate operations. AT&T kept the long distance lines. The regional Bell operating companies kept the residential and state telecommunication customers. And there were also small regional companies who operated alongside and against the RBOX. 1990, that statutory regime, regulatory regime worked well for about a decade. Then in 1996, Congress passed the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which sought to permit the RBOX and other local telephone companies to engage to compete in the long distance telecommunications marketplace. And the process to allow RBOX to compete in the long distance market was similar to what happened with the wholesale electricity market reforms that came about in our electricity jurisdictions. And it was to provide open access to these long distance lines for these RBOX. So similar to Northwestern's OAT or MDU's OAT, we have a, what's the acronym for telcos? It's SGATs, Statements of Generally Available Terms and Conditions for Interconnecting with these long distance interstate infrastructure. When Montana's RBOC, Quest, was looking to interconnect and provide long distance services, we instituted a stakeholder process in Montana to discuss what the general performance plan should look like and what some of the benchmarks in that plan should accomplish. And this was implemented to prevent Quest from using its large market advantages in Montana to the detriment of local providers. And it was meant to try and ensure some of this equal access to long distance services. That was implemented in 2002, and you have 20 years from then till now. And this system of performance benchmarks and penalties has really become kind of a non-issue in the last 20 years, where these penalties amounted to about $80,000 in the early aughts. They're down to zero annually, which means that, under the PIP and PAD, Quest CenturyLink is not getting fined for violations of these benchmarks. Then there's a second element, which is kind of a annual reporting and transparency function, which permits these local telephone companies the ability to review Quest's service conditions and to request information from Quest. And those requests from these local companies have really fallen to zero as well in the last 5 to 10 years. I have my thoughts for why I think the PIP and PAD have become more irrelevant in the last 20 years, but that's not important for now. What's important for now is Quest would like the ability to have the PIP and PAD removed from their obligations to operate Montana. So that way they can focus on services and other operational concerns that actually matter to their business. Staff does not have any concerns with Quest proposal here. We note that they have contacted all the local telcos, and none of the local telcos objected to Quest's requests. And I think that's a good indication that the PIP and the PAD are largely irrelevant at this point. And we also have not had any vigorous participation from the Montana Consumer Council. So with that being said, we have submitted a draft default order and we recommend approval and are available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Regala. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Regala. Thank you for visiting with us today also. This week, we missed you deeply. I just wanted you to address, give some clarity that this docket item, as I understand it, bears no relationship whatever to the docket item that we have initiated having to do with CenturyLink's relationship with individual retail customers. This is talking about basically wholesale, their relationship with the telcos, not with individual customers. We are still proceeding apace with our investigation into the performance of CenturyLink vis-a-vis our individual retail customers. Is that not correct?
President Brown, Commissioner O'Donnell, that is correct. I think of this docket as dealing with seam issues between Quest and local telcos like, for example, Ronan Telephone Company. This does not deal substantially with Quest's own infrastructure. That would fall under your Federal Universal Service Fund jurisdiction or your general supervision and control over telcos and should not impact your investigation into their service terms and conditions.
Oh,
Thank you. Then I would move to accept staff's recommendation that we approve CenturyLink's application for the removal of these padded PIPs from our regulatory authority.
is there a second? Commissioner Fielder?
Mr. President, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Fielder?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I wanted to be sure, and I did investigate this with staff, that this does not affect the current investigation docket that we have. This is not an issue of service to individual customers' homes. This is a issue of the interconnection between the small providers and the large company, and there have not been any comments or complaints in quite some time. So I'm comfortable with accepting the staff recommendation on this.
Thank you. Additional discussion, Vice Chair Johnson?
Nothing to add, Mr. President. Thank you.
Just a clarifying question. Mr. Regala, so is the QWest Performance Assurance Plan the only performance plan that the commission is currently overseeing at this point? Do you know? If not, I can ask Mr. Rosequist to come up.
President Brown, I would just be speculating. I'm assuming no, but I could get back to you on that one.
Mr. Rosequist, did you want to come up if you know the answer? Mr. Dalton?
Mr. President, Commissioners, I'll venture to say that no, the commission is not overseeing any other performance assurance plan type mechanisms for CenturyLink at this time. And if I'm incorrect, Mr. Dalton can correct the record.
So this, as I understand, QWest is the only entity that we're still regulating under the performance assurance plan, correct?
Correct. And it was the only entity we ever regulated under the performance assurance plan.
I only asked that question because, as we've discussed, we have statutory authority, funding authority for regulating this entity. Additional discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner O'Donnell's motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries. All right, let's move to work session item number 3. This is docket 2021.09.111. Northwestern Energy, Northwestern's revised qualifying facility power purchase tariff schedule number QF-1. We're here to make a decision on the legal briefing regarding Northwestern's filing. Mr. Regala.
Thank you, President Brown, Commissioners again. Before you is a brief staff memo on resolution of Northwestern's filing to update its QF-1 tariff. You'll remember that in late 2020, the hearings examiner for the QF-1 docket issued a proposed hearing examiner decision. The commission, on full consideration of that order, adopted it in part, modified it in part, and then issued an order on reconsideration, I believe, April 27th of 2021. At the same time, Montana legislature was deliberating SB 201, which is a new statute dealing with the commission's jurisdiction over PURPA matters, and discusses how the commission should resolve costs that are not incurred by a utility that deal with environmental externalities or colloquially referred to generally as carbon taxes or other costs that could be related to these, I'll just call them fluffy costs. That sailed through both the House and the Senate. It was signed by Governor Gianforte on April 28th. And the issue we're dealing with today is trying to figure out whether SB 201, which sought to eliminate some of these fluffy costs, applies to the previous QF-1 decision, which may or may not have had a $3 and $44 or cent per megawatt hour carbon adder. Northwestern filed a form filing to apply SB 201 backwards to eliminate that $3.44 carbon adder. The problem from staff's perspective is that SB 201, based on its plain language, does not apply retroactively to the QF1 tariff. However, we understand that going forward, SB 201 is clearly law. And so we recommend that the commission deny Northwestern's application without prejudice. And whenever Northwestern would like to file a complete application to revise its entire QF1 tariff, that of course, they're not precluded from doing so. But clearly legislature didn't point this one backwards at the previous decision. So we recommend denying without prejudice.
Thank you, Mr. Regeller. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you. The last part that you mentioned, that Northwestern would still be able to refile application for this. Would the commission have any authority on its own to revise our QF1 decision, regardless of whether or not it was initiated by Northwestern?
President Brown, Commissioner O'Donnell, we have broad authority. We can ask Northwestern to come in to revise its QF1 tariff. We couldn't do it unilaterally, but we can ask them to come in for sure.
All right. So the purpose of this is just to conform our regulations, which were adopted the day before SB 201 took effect, just to bring our regulations into conformance with the law.
Chair Brown, Commissioner O'Donnell, this action today would leave in place the previously approved QF1 tariff. That includes a carbon adder. That tariff will stay in place until Northwestern comes in to update its QF1 tariff in the future.
Right.
You have the option today to decide whether to move forward with Northwestern's request. And they're asking you to revise this discrete section now. And staff is recommending that you deny that request and leave the standard rate in place until a full application comes in. That's a little bit different. So let me answer any other clarifying questions. Yeah.
So I'm going to move that the commission deny and dismiss Northwestern's application without prejudice. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion, Commissioner O'Donnell.
No, Mr. Jones, thank you.
Additional discussion?
Mr. President, I am
Commissioner Fielder?
torn on this one. I believe there's valid points on both sides, but I would think that the position of the commission would be more in line with legislative intent if we actually approved Northwestern's motion. Given the intent of the bill, Senate Bill 201, and the commission's prior decision, there's an overlap there, and I believe that actually approving Northwestern's motion would be more in line with legislative intent than denying it at this point. So I'm going to oppose the motion.
All right, additional discussion? Commissioner O'Donnell?
Well, thank you again. So I quite agree with Commissioner Fielder, and that was a point of confusion that I had myself on here. But that because this commission adopted the QF rules the day before SB 201 went into effect, that if we had done it the day after, we could have, by our own volition, initiative, changed that QF1 decision. But having done so, we're in a position where we're precluded from taking unilateral action and have to wait for somebody to petition us to do that, to bring our rules in conformance with SB 201. That's my understanding of that. So this is simply a legal roadblock that we have on the whole thing, a procedural roadblock. That it is the obvious historical intent of this commission to comply with state law, especially this one.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Vice President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have repeatedly argued as strenuously as I could against the practice of collecting a carbon tax that doesn't exist. Having said that, we are again faced with the decision of doing what's right or doing what's legal. I continue to believe we are constrained by that pesky dang thing called the law. And I think in this particular case, we have no choice but to dismiss without prejudice Northwestern's motion. I'll support the motion and hope that Northwestern will come to us in the near term, presenting us an opportunity to fix this situation, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Additional discussion? I would echo the remarks made by the Vice President. I believe the law is pretty clear and controlling on this matter and warrants the grant of my motion today. I would note, as the Vice President did, that we are dismissing this without prejudice, which leaves open in a future proceeding addressing the merits of the statutory scheme at a future point. Additional discussion? Commissioner Fielder.
Thank you, Mr. President. So regarding your statement, can I ask you for your views concerning Northwestern's point that this is a new proceeding that was actually started after, several months after Senate Bill 201 was passed?
Are you asking?
I'm asking if you would mind stating your viewpoint on that to help me with this, because that's really I think the crux of this for me is the point at which this new proceeding was initiated after Senate Bill 201 was passed, but this commission is now debating whether to apply the law previous to the passage of Senate Bill 201 to a case that was initiated after the passage of Senate Bill 201.
Well, Mr. Gallo, did you want to take a stab at that?
President Brown, Commissioner Fielder, my view is that what Northwestern is asking to do is to look back at the currently approved QF1 tariff to remove this discrete issue. Yes, Northwestern filed its filing 4 months after SB 201 was passed, but it's not a new QF1 docket, because if it were, we would have a robust contested case proceeding where we would redo the entire QF1 tariff. And that would involve, an evidentiary hearing, multiple interveners, and a 1.5 year long process. But that's not what was filed. What was filed was a discrete single issue filing. And in my mind, that is just looking backwards at the previous QF1 tariff.
Mr. President and Mr. Regala, and they're asking to look back in light of passage of the new law, correct? Well, I hold with my position. I feel the commission could implement the intent of the law by actually approving the motion we have before us today. For that reason, I'm still going to deny or vote against the motion on the table.
Thank you, Commissioner Fielder, and I will take, if I may, the opportunity to address your question. Commission issued the order on reconsideration on April 27th. The filing by Northwestern Energy has the legal effect of being retroactive to the date of that filing and the validity of the commission's order. And therefore, in my belief, SB 201 is clear that does not apply to that order of April 27th, 2021. I think the law on this is extremely clear, and we have one legal obligation and duty here, and that is to deny the filing. Additional discussion? Did you want a roll call vote on this, Commissioner Fielder?
I don't feel that it's necessary, Mr. President. I probably will be the only no, but I will go on record voting no.
Okay, well, let's do voice vote then. All those in favor of my motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think Vice Chair Johnson, did you vote aye?
I did, Mr. President.
Okay, you cut up there. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
Right, motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Fielder opposing. All right, thank you, Mr. Agala. Let me take this opportunity, if you want to just stay here for a moment. I'm doing this sort of off the cuff and as a matter of spontaneity, but it's my understanding this is probably the last time that you'll be appearing before the commission in your capacity currently as an attorney for the commission. For those that don't know, Mr. Agala has decided to go to greener pastures to leave the commission. I believe that you'll be done with the commission at the end of March, correct? So I'm going to give you this opportunity if you would like to say any words. If not, you can wave off and we can give you our salutations.
Thank you, President Brown. It's been a good learning opportunity to work on some interesting and important issues. There's a lot of good people at the PSC. There's a lot of disruption and important issues coming down the pike in the next decade. So I'm sad to leave because it'd be great to stay, but it's a good choice for my family to take this new position. So I'll miss you guys, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Agala. Any commissioners want to say anything? Commissioner Fielder?
I do, Mr. President. Thank you for this. I really do appreciate Zach's efforts with the commission since I've been involved this last year and a quarter or so. He has been incredibly responsive and he's been artfully articulate in explaining complex matters to me to help me understand them. And I just appreciate the quality of his work. And I'm sorry to see you go, Zach. We really, really appreciate you. And I've learned a lot from you. Appreciate the extra effort that you've given and the patience that you've displayed with myself and perhaps other commissioners here. And we're going to miss you. I wish you well, though, with your family. And I totally understand.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I could not have said it any better. Your ability to, again, the same thing, explaining complex things to me have been very, very helpful and informative. Your ability to very quickly grasp these issues has been just amazing to me. I would also like to say that the remaining attorneys that we have here exhibit the same skills and gifts of being able to explain things. And what I especially appreciate was that your commitment to understanding things instead of just saying, this is what we need to do, whatever. Your ability to explain can only be subsequent to a complete understanding of your own with intellectual pursuit. And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of your approach. And again, we will miss you greatly. Thank you.
Additional comment or discussion? Well, I would echo the comments of my colleagues. I've been impressed with your legal acumen and skills since I was sworn into the commission. I have relied on you extensively for your knowledge of commission operations and the history of the commission. You are our most senior attorney at this point, which is not that senior. You're still a very young man. You've done yeoman's work on behalf of the commission. What I've really appreciated about you, Zach, is that you have a dedication to this job and you have the interests of the ratepayer and the regulated utilities in Montana first and foremost in your mind. You've done great work for the commission and you'll be missed, but I'm excited for you and your new opportunity. As we've discussed, you've through your work here at the commission have been able to gain a legal skill set that is going to provide you invaluable opportunities and paths that many other attorneys will never have and will never have the skill set to do. You'll have a very, very successful career in the area of utility regulation. And I think you're going to have a long and successful career. And on behalf of the commission, we wish you luck and thank you for your service. Additional discussion, Commissioner O'Donnell.
One last point is that the door is always open. Should you regret this move, but the best of luck to you. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further business come before the commission, I will adjourn this meeting. It is now 10:15 a.m.